Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Breakdown. We brought in Dimansa, obviously, who's a women's cricketer herself, in Johor, Malaysia. Right now, we are going to discuss about the women ICC women's qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, and we'll be discussing obviously the ICC Women's World Cup qualifiers was abandoned yesterday in Zimbabwe due to a new variant coming. I think, yeah, the new variant coming obviously been detected in South Africa. So that has affected all the other African regions as well and has spread to Europe as well. So we'll be discussing about everything about Sri Lanka women's also not qualifying for the first time since 1993 edition. Yeah, Dimansa thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
about
also, this is the first time on TSB we've done women's cricket. There's a lot more to come on TSB, so make sure you have your eye out for that. So this is gonna be a very interesting day. We're gonna go through basically that, and then talk about other games from the qualifiers. So, do you want to start with Sri Lanka cricket, or do you want to start with just in general being called up and other teams?
no. Yeah, let's first talk about ICC cancelling this Women's
Right.
ODI World Cup qualifiers for a bit. Yeah. So yeah, first of all, we need to speak about that because it was a big surprise for me. Maybe they could have brought this back. I mean, should have scheduled this to January or February next year. Maybe
Yeah, because
that could have
the
been
World Cup
ideal. Yeah,
is in 2022, and I think calling off something this big it's
yeah,
very detrimental to most teams. So I agree that they should have maybe postponed it to next year, but this year I don't think they should be playing it. I mean, it's COVID, and also Sri Lankan's team. I think three people got positive too. So
yeah. We'll discuss
fair
about
enough.
that
Fair
later. Yeah.
enough. They called it off here, but I think they could have been more lenient in regards of making it happen next year. But yeah, it is what it is
Yeah, but I
now.
think it's because of the busy schedule. I think mainly
Oh
because it
yes.
starts because the Women's World Cup is in February. March, April. Meanwhile, in New Zealand. And I think they didn't have time to. Schedule it to next January or February at least in another country, at least not in the African regions, but in another country. Yeah. So, and especially for Thailand women's and yeah, mainly for Thailand, it would have affected a lot because they don't even have ODI status yet, and they performed really well in this
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about
women's ODI
Thailand.
World Cup.
Let's talk about Thailand
Yeah,
first. I mean,
we'll talk about that later, but right now I
okay,
just
all right,
wanted to direct on that.
sure, sure.
First of all, we'll talk about Sri Lankan women's. First of all, yeah, let's discuss on them. First of all, we'll talk about the three players testing positive for COVID-19. First of all, that was a big impact. මම හිතන්නේ ඒක ලොකු ඉම්පැක්ට් එකක් වුණා මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකන් වුමන්ස් වලට මේ team එකට before preparation එක before the women's world cup because I think um, um, even Chamari Atapattu, she had to come from the Perth Scorchers from the Big Bash, and actually Perth Scorchers yesterday won the Women's Big Bash League, and Chamari Atapattu could have been in Australia. ඉතින් එයාට ඔස්ට්‍රේලිය ඉන්න තිබ්බා ඒ සෙලිබ්‍රේෂන් කරන්න ඉතින් මෙඩල් එකත් කලෙක්ට් කරන්න හැබැයි එයාට අන්ෆෝර්චුනේට්ලි එයාට මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවත් ක්වොලිෆයි වුණේ නැහැ ICC Women's World Cup එකට මේ ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ කාන්තා වුමන්ස් වර්ල්ඩ් කප් එකටත් සිලෙක්ට් උනේ ක්වොලිෆයි වුණෙත් නෑ මේ පර්ත් ස්කොචර්ස් උත් ඉන්න තිබෙත් නෑ ඉතින් මාර ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙලා තියෙන චාමරි අතපත්තුටත් but yeah still demands a thoughts yeah
Yeah, let's talk about
especially
Chamari first. Chamari, she's been in this team, this setup for a very long time, and one
yeah
person who's backed her up is Shashikala. But like now she's retired. It's almost like
yeah
she's for a long time. Like no disrespectful whatsoever. She's been carrying this team for a very long time, and she's 31 now, so the retirement is coming soon. So my worries is when she retires, what will happen to the state of this team? I mean, she has been very consistent nearly every single match, and you saw that. I mean, the last qualifier when she got 111. See, no one really backed her up there. See, that has always been the problem with this women's side. I mean, this Sri Lankan side, they've got a lot of youngsters. I think the youngest is 19, and the oldest being around, I think, 36. So there's a lot of this combination between the youngest and the oldest, but the problem here is not talent or anything like that. It's a very promising team. The problem here is a lack of priority towards the women's game, and just there's no urge to improve here. And this is all. I mean, you basically can blame the management here. I mean, not arranging a game in 18 months, that is very shameful. That
yeah
that basically prevented them from getting the ICC points to even qualify. So I mean, they should be very ashamed, and I hope they take this as a wake up call to, because
Mm.
now we're not in the World Cup next year, and this is the first time in how many years? 27, I believe,
Yeah,
27 years.
27, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
this definitely
also,
has to be
we
a
won't
wake
be
up call.
sending the, sorry to interrupt, we won't be sending the link to anyone because we want to make this short because we have such a lot to discuss about in this women's World Cup qualifiers. So, whoever's asking for the link, we won't be sending it. Also, we got updates yesterday. අපිට අප්ඩේට්ස් ආව දැන් 7 දෙනෙක් මේ කාන්තා ක්‍රිකට් අය මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් අයත් පොසිටිව් වුණා කෝවිඩ් වලට ඊයේ that's the reason why the West Indies women's haven't gone to the field and the match was abandoned yesterday. So that has been the updates. They were afraid to go to the field because of these positive tests in the Sri Lankan camp. And it's only happened in the Sri Lankan camp. I don't get what has happened. I mean, because I could be possibly because of the Sri Lankan women's team. ශ්‍රී ලංකා කාන්තා ටීම් එකට මේ qualifiers එක මේ යන්න වුණේ නැත්තේ ඉදිරියට. ඉතින් that's a big concern. Yeah, so thoughts on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why this has only happened to the Sri Lankan team. Once again, it's Sri Lanka having these kind of problems, with these I don't know what is bubbles or whatever. It's again them being positive. So that I don't know what has happened, but this is also another concern here. So I think one of the main reasons they've called it off is because of this. I mean, it's very fair to call this off here. I mean, obviously, the safety of players is way more important than obviously in these games. Yeah, so I really don't know what happens here, what has happened here. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
so unfortunate over here. Yeah.
also
Yes.
one player that really that kind of was promising right from the start was Dilhari. She's 20 now. She made her
Mm.
debut, I remember, at 18. I think
Yeah.
she was first recognized by talent scout like when she was 15, and then
Yeah.
on her debut game she got the wicket of Harmanpreet Kaur, and not only that,
Mm.
but she scored the winning run. So see, as you can see, the talent is there. This team, they've got talent, but a lack of funds, a lack of priority. I think this team can go a long way.
I think
Like the
even
Thailand.
Oshadi Ranasinghe also is one, if I'm not mistaken. She's 35, very
Who
experienced
else?
fast bowler. I've seen her performing well in recent series also. And then the open alongside Chamari Atapattu, I think, I can't remember her
Hasani.
name, but Hasini, Hasini, I
Yeah.
think she's the vice captain of the Sri Lankan women's team.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, even
there's
she has
been a
been
lot of
performing.
experienced stuff like Udayashika. I mean, who else? There's been a lot of experienced people, like they've been in this setup for a very long time now. I mean, I
Yeah.
could definitely they're getting bored of this. They're getting bored of
Mm.
this time. I mean, how can you? I mean, if you don't have matches for so long, I mean, you. I remember I was watching the interview, and this side for the 2020 World Cup, they only started preparing around 4 months prior to that. Whereas a team like
Yeah.
Australia have been practicing for years now. So I mean, how can you
Mm.
expect to go into a World Cup even having a little hope to win when you only start preparing 4 months prior to a World Cup? So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just management here, really, isn't it?
Mm. And obviously Sri Lankan women haven't qualified for the Women's World Cup for the first time since the 1993 edition. So that's a bit of a shock with how they performed. And obviously we can't blame the Sri Lankan women's team also because the qualifiers actually didn't go ahead. I mean, they could have qualified, I mean, as the top two in the table and gone to the Super Six. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And I mean, they didn't play regular cricket for 2 years. The tour against Pakistan was cancelled last month, so they didn't have any alternative tours. So thoughts on that and what's going wrong right now for the Sri Lankan
Yeah.
women's cricket, and also about the management of the Sri Lankan cricket board right now. Why are they
I
ignoring women's cricket right now? I
yeah, I
seriously don't
mean,
understand.
you see, like for I think ever since cricket has like become popular in Sri Lanka, it's always been about men's cricket, men's cricket, men's cricket. I've never seen them prioritizing the game, and I would go as far as saying there's maybe a lack of interest in the country, and this is because there hasn't been like apart from Chamari and Shashika, there hasn't been role models for these girls. So I
Mm.
mean, if you take countries like India, there you've got Harmanpreet, you've got your Super Smith, you've got your role models. So Sri Lanka has a long way to go in terms of that. But I think the main problem here is the management. I mean, you have to organize games. You have to give them that exposure. That exposure is so like important. Like if you're not gonna get games, you need to be playing against those top teams. If you're not playing against those top teams, you're not gonna have that experience to go into even even Netherlands. I mean, yes, they started really well, but no disrespect, if Chamari wasn't there, they wouldn't have they this goal. Every time, they've had something is because of Chamari. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's very I don't know what
Yeah,
to
because
say. It's
Sri
just very
Lanka cricket, we haven't played a two, I think, since the
hmm.
women's 2020 World Cup in
Oh,
2020. දෙදස් විස්ස ඉතින් ඒක මාර බලපානො මේ ටීම් එකට because මේ ඒගොලෝ women's cricket උත් ගහන්නේ ලංකාවේ. I mean they're not playing even first class even or even ODI tours, nothing organized. And I think there's no under 19 under 23 setup, I think, in the women's cricket, if I'm not mistaken, in Sri Lanka. So
no,
that's
there isn't.
another big concern.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, these tours getting cancelled. At least if they have some alternative tours, or at least make it go overseas. I really don't know.
Yeah,
I
because
really don't know why this
they've had domestic
tour
tours,
got
but
cancelled.
you can't compare domestic cricket to international cricket. They need that international exposure. They need to go to other countries. They need to be playing on those pitches. I mean,
Yeah.
having playing against your own domestic teams, that's not going to help at all. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Ron Hayes has said
Yeah.
yeah.
Rohan, yes, says
What is road for
what is road forward now for Sri Lanka women's cricket? Is there any road first of all, being number
I
10 in
mean,
the ranking?
you. I think just like the men's team, you start slow. You start. It's just building blocks here. You start like right at the basics. Start with few tours. You get that exposure. I feel like. I mean, that's what Thailand did. I mean, even before 2020 World Cup, no one really even knew Thailand played cricket. Yeah, they got that
Yeah.
exposure, and they. I mean, it's been remarkable, their story, and they've basically began that process. I don't think we even began that process. I don't. I mean, there's a long way to go if we want to get to. I mean, right now we're number 10. To get to that
Yeah, let's
top
go through the
five, yeah.
rankings. Yeah,
Let's go
because
to the
this is
rankings. Yeah.
utter shameful. I don't know how Bangladesh came to number 5 all of a sudden, only playing 5 matches. I really do. I think they played a Zimbabwe tour this November for the first time, which is why their ratings increased. Sri Lanka, nothing whatsoever, nothing. I really don't know. They are behind Ireland even. If they played more matches, they would have at least been ahead in the rankings, ahead even of Pakistan's West Indies. So this is lack of interest from the Sri Lankan cricket board. This is why Sri Lanka in this state right now, in my opinion. I really don't know. So
I
yeah.
think a lot of
So thoughts.
funds, a lot of funds that the SLC receives basically goes to the men's team. Yeah, I mean, I think very
Yeah.
little of that goes to the women's team. I mean, I don't. It's obvious. It's just a management problem here. It's just there's no interest really. They've never shown interest. We don't see interviews from the Sri Lankan women. The only people we see get interviewed is Chamari, and like so basically
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even know this team exists. Like personally speaking,
Hmm.
half of the team we don't know them, right? And so
Yeah. We used to don't know.
it's
Yeah.
and franchise cricket, it's only been Chapman who's played that, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, she's been
Yeah.
exposed to a lot of those, but to get to that level, I mean, there's a long way to go.
I think the
Yeah,
other issue is that I think even TV rights, when it comes to TV rights or even on YouTube, they don't show much
mm,
of Sri Lankan women's cricket. When you go and check on Sri Lankan women's cricket, there's only limited videos, and mainly it's only on Chamari Atapatto. So if we see, we don't see much of the matches. We can't go through what's going on. Only we see them only in World Cup tournaments, especially in ICC tournaments,
mm.
in bilateral series. I mean, from 2017 to 2020, I've not seen a single match going on TV or on YouTube, unlike the men's teams. So nobody's exposed. That's the biggest issue, and we don't know who's even playing. Unlike Chamari or even Shashika that time, or even Hansini, I think only a few players we actually know, and they haven't even
Even when
performed
other
something.
teams play, like even Bangladesh, they get media exposure. Like even if we play like against a small match, it never gets broadcasted. So how can people even know the team exists here? So even when Thailand now they're getting broadcasted. So I think it's just about the management here, really, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
very
very true.
it's about starting small, but if I hope this is a wake up call. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
shameful
Rohan.
that
Yeah. Rohan here says India women play among themselves in challenges to get game time with three teams now. We know that, but the thing is,
hmm,
BCCI, there's so much money right now. They can even invest in IPL, for a women's IPL even right now. I think there's ideas of a women's IPL to happen. And maybe only Chamari Atapattu will be the only player being
right.
selected as a Sri Lankan contingent. I don't think the other players will be selected.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. But the problem is even the LPL is the second season running in Sri Lanka. So I don't know even a women's. I think there's ideas of a women's 2020 tournament to happen. but I don't know whether it will be implemented soon. And the way that Sri Lanka, I mean, women's cricket is running, I really don't know whether it will happen even in the next 5 years.
This
Yes,
management, they've been talking about like a woman's tournament, blah blah blah, but they've never implemented that. They've all been talk. They've never really implemented anything. Then their ideas. I mean, that goes with the men's side too, but especially with
yeah,
women's side, it's ridiculous, really.
yes, that's right. Yeah, Rohan has a good idea here. Possibly have a shadow tour alongs with men, so get some match time. But the thing is, then every team, I mean, every country then should get that exposure. I mean, even Australia, England, India, they also should get. But the issue is the grounds, and especially Sri Lanka, we have limited grounds, and then there's school cricket going on, there's domestic cricket going on. We have limited grounds right now, so the pitches could get bad. So I really don't know. Maybe we can use the
Um,
MCA. That's where women's cricket. I watched also women's cricket live. Maybe you can use that ground or a few other grounds, but I really have no clue.
there's been a new
Um,
facility open, right? I think last year, just for like women's cricket in Sri Lanka, just the women's nets, women's like a women's
yeah,
ground. Didn't yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's a positive step forward, but just having a ground doesn't really do anything if you're not going to play any matches. And also lacking of funds, meaning like they can't have this as their full-time profession. There's just not enough money, so they're not going to be training all the time here. It's just a part-time thing for most, especially I think. Unless it's Chamari, it's most of them. These are just part time. No sponsors, no funds. How can you make this a full time thing? Unlike the BCCI, England cricket, New Zealand, the top teams, they have that as their profession. They're playing franchise cricket. They're playing those games. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, a long way to go, really.
Yeah, and talking about mentioning about Chamari Atapattu, first time we won't see Chamari Atapattu in a World Cup. Her last innings, the 178 against Australia, you must have watched that plenty of times. Just discuss about Chamari Atapattu. That innings itself
Um,
was
just
so memorable, and that's why she got a Big Bash League contract with Melbourne Renegades. Now this season she got with Perth Scorchers. So yeah, thoughts on that? Yeah, especially
I think just
178 knock.
just
That's where
Chamari in
that's
general, yeah,
yeah, that's where Chamari Atapattu got highlighted to
yeah,
the
yeah.
world. That knock against Australia, and yeah. So thoughts on that? Yeah.
I mean, just in general, I think Chamuri has been, not only has she been inspiration to Sri Lankan girls, but the world, the way she bats, the way she executes herself. It's been so brilliant. I mean, see, these are the kind of role models I'm talking about. People you look up to. I'm talking about, like, why would anyone want to even take up the game? If this is the state of Sri Lanka cricket right now, why would any girl want to take it up? Just to be dragged along in this setup for years. So Femi Chomri has been probably what she is probably my favorite cricketer out there. She's executed in a very really good way. She's always been very complacent. She's been one of the most complacent players out there. Very humble, just goes out there and does her thing. You can see from her interviews. Yeah. How
Yeah, and she's also played in the woman. Obviously, we spoke about the Big Bash. She's
Malaysia?
also
Yeah.
played in the Women's 2020 Challenge. That's the Indian tournament going on. Then she's played in England as well. She's been exposed in England. So yeah, so
Mm,
she's played in all. I think all the franchises cricket going on. Women's franchise cricket, if I'm not mistaken, she has to play the 100 yet, but I think she'll get opportunity next year, hopefully. But yeah, that 178 knock was so good, and I
yeah.
watched it so many times, especially her approach, her aggressive
Um,
approach, and that's why even
her
Australian
batting's
women,
kind of like
uh,
a mixed sanga approach. It's so elegant. You watch
even
you watch her
Sanat,
shots.
yeah,
It's
Sanat
almost like men's
Jayasuriya, yeah.
cricket for me. Her elegance, she bats perfectly for me here. She's
But the
just
only issue is
brilliant.
that no one is there to back
Bat
Chamari
right,
Atapattu,
right.
especially
As soon as
middle
she's
order
out,
of Sri Lanka. I really don't know about the women's cricket, especially the middle order is very very weak.
very weak.
And they're very slow. I mean, they can score runs, but they score at a slow strike rate.
Mm.
Whereas Tamari Atapattu, she can score runs at a high strike rate. And whether it's Australia,
And
West Indies, England women's, it doesn't matter. If it's the even the high ranked teams or the low ranked teams, she'll somehow score. She'll somehow manage to score 100 and try to put a valiant effort. We saw that with the Perth Scorchers recently. She scored a 70 not out knock, very crucial. So yeah, I think
I
she's the
mean,
only. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, if
yeah.
this format of T20 and ODI gets going, we can see test matches coming in, and imagine how brilliant that would be. To see, I mean, I can't remember the last time this women's side has played a test match. I don't really know.
I don't think.
Um,
I think they've played
Have
only
they even?
one or two
I
ever.
don't. I mean, you saw England and India do that, and even New Zealand do
Yeah.
that. Like a couple of months back. If only if this gets going. I mean, how can they have test matches? When they haven't even established a proper team even.
They do
So
have test status. I think Sri Lanka women's cricket
but
have
when
test
was the
status,
last
but they
time?
only
Yeah,
played one or two.
right.
I think they played one in the 90s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's
Yeah,
the last time.
here
Yeah.
another.
Rohan, he asked a good question. How good is sponsorship for women's cricket in Sri Lanka? What can be done to bring them in? Yeah, maybe you have a better idea than me in
Yeah,
this.
see, I'm not. Yeah, so I see sponsorship. In terms of sponsorship, I think the only people, I think Chamari and Shashika, those are the only two that have actually got sponsorships, I think, in this team. I mean, no one else is like big enough to get noticed, I feel like. So, I mean,
Mm,
obviously, brands would not want to sponsor them. I mean, Chamari, yes, of course. I think she's been sponsored by what? Red Bull, other stuff, right? But
mm,
what can be done to bring them in? Exposure here. I mean, if these girls get games, they're gonna get recognized. Their talent is gonna get recognized. People are
mm.
gonna see that. Brands are gonna see that, and that's when the sponsorships starts coming in. So until we get that exposure, nothing is going to happen really.
Rohan asked a good question as well. Can few intergender club games be organized so the players get to play? It's a tough question. I don't see that happening with the
I
way
don't.
that the Sri Lankan men's are playing. Maybe they could organize a
um,
mixed league tournament, but like the
I
100 like England are doing right now, maybe Sri Lanka can implement that. But the issue is the rank where we stand right now in the rankings, and if the women's don't play that much matches, I don't see that happening. And we need to attract overseas players as well. They
right.
won't come if Sri
No.
Lanka are in a low standard right now. I don't see
And
that
by
happening right
intergender, I mean they could be like the Sri Lankan, this army navy, the navy team can play our top team. I think that could work, but not the proper team. Not the official Sri Lankan men's team. That I don't see them playing with our women's team. That's just not going to
that
happen,
doesn't
right?
happen anywhere in the
That's
world.
not going to happen. Maybe yeah, I don't see that happening, but like something. I think one day if we get to the point where we can have 100 or something like that. I think they just need to have a tournament here really to attract.
Maybe we should
Before
have
that,
both men's and women's playing together in the same clubs. That could be a better
is
alternative.
that not
When
happening right now?
with the domestic, I mean, with the domestic structures are now being constructed right now. Maybe they could put these women's teams also with the men's, like the domestic teams. Maybe the 15 teams, like for both men's and women's, and to play that in different seasons. Maybe because when Sri Lanka men's tour, I mean, the Sri Lanka men's team go overseas or play at home. Maybe the Sri Lankan women's can play that domestic season over there with their respective clubs. So maybe that could be organized, maybe. But
I
otherwise,
think
I
there's
don't
just
see
not
any
enough
other
women's
alternative.
clubs really. I don't think there's just enough. Maybe in Colombo there is, but like in other parts of the country, if girls want to pick up cricket, they go to their local clubs and it's just all men. That
But
can
I
be really
think
intimidating.
Tamari is from Kununagal, if I'm not mistaken.
Is
She's
she?
not from Colombo. So
Okay,
yeah, she had to come to Colombo. I mean, there is
right.
some exposure outside of
It's a lot of
Colombo, but the
hassle.
thing
This is
is,
a lot of hassle.
we just need to see because they all have to come to Colombo. That's the issue.
Right,
We have to
exactly. That's what
um,
I'm trying to say.
yeah, that's the thing. We have to sort of see in other provinces, mainly how in all 26 provinces in Sri Lanka, even this is applying to men's cricket as well. This is not only for women's, for men's also this is the same issue. All have to come to Colombo to play interprovincial tournaments or domestic cricket. They need to play in other provinces as well. And the thing issue is that we don't have that infrastructure, we don't have the funds. We need to spend, we get billions of dollars. I think they sell seaboard. I don't know what they're doing with the money right now. Maybe if they can
Yeah,
go
I
and
mean they're spending it on, I
invest in
think.
all the other
Um,
provinces, make some grounds. We only have the
mm,
Hambantota ground, we have Dambulla, we have Colombo, obviously, Kandy, Gaul. Um, that's it, I think, most probably only 5 or 6 provinces. And that's the same issue with the LPL also. All provinces, in Jaffna, even Batikalo, you come to the eastern province, northern province, and I mean, even Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, who knows? There could be cricketers over there as well. Who knows? Even Jaffna,
I feel
Kilinochta,
like there's so much
Mana,
talent across the country,
Puttalam.
so much talent across the country, but it won't get recognized ever. I mean,
Yeah,
coming to Colombo just to play, that's such a hassle. You move cities, and from a village going there, that's a lot of work, that's a lot of time, there's a lot of money going into it. So I mean,
yeah,
so there has been talent scouts, a lot of talent scouts going out there. I
yeah.
saw a few, but there's very little those can do. You get the players, but after you get the players, that's what you do next. That's what matters, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's switch to another team, another
Right.
country's team. We'll talk about Thailand. How good have they been? I mean, last 10 years, I think they've not even been playing. I think we'll show the points table also. I think they're number one right now. They just beat Bangladesh women's team. They beat Zimbabwe. They beat USA. I think they only lost to Pakistan, if I'm not
Pakistan, but that was
mistaken.
a very close match. That was a close match too. So
Yeah,
I
but
mean, they've done miracles here, really. I mean, we only got exposed to their team last year in 2020, the World Cup. Really, that's the first time we really knew they had a team. I mean, the first thing we got exposed to was their hospitality and the passion for the game. The passion was there. You could see that, and they really, I've been following them, and they've been training often. They've brought the facilities there. I mean, they really had a passion. I can't remember who their captain is, but
I
that's
think
the one of the
it's on the banner. Is it on the
right.
banner? Yeah, it's on the
Um,
banner. Yeah.
yeah, that.
Naurimal Chaiwai. Yeah, she's the captain,
I mean,
the
yeah.
Thailand women's. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so the points table.
Yes. Just continue. Yeah. Yeah. Just let's continue. Yeah. Yeah. Still, I think they got 6 points. You won the points table, right? Yeah.
um, right. Yeah,
I was
points
just
table.
going through their results.
No, you
No,
scroll
but
down.
it's okay. So yeah, still, I think they won three matches. They only lost one. I'm not sure about Pakistan, but I think they would have qualified for the Super Six for sure. Thailand, with how they perform, definitely.
Definitely, hundreds percent. I think so. Out of these players, out of these teams, Bangladesh, um, West Indies, and who else has qualified? And Pakistan, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Pakistan, yeah, right.
Yes.
Um, you know, yeah. So I think out of these teams, I think Ireland is very promising too. I mean, you saw their win against the Netherlands. That was very thrilling. Who was it? I think Delaney or someone. She really stood up. They were at a really they were I think they were going at a really winning position, but then they goaled out for 41 overs. But
Mm.
Delaney, she stepped up, got her 75, and eventually they'd win. There's so much talent in the women's game right now. Even with the Asian qualifiers going up, the European cricket boards, there's so much talent, and I can see a very, very, very big growth in women's cricket in the future. And it's not just going to be India or New Zealand, Australia, and England. Those teams, who's going to be recognized now. I think a lot of other teams are going to be up there soon.
And it's good to see USA cricket also in these women's qualifiers, even in the I mean in the Caribbean, now USA, Canada women's. There is so much
It's just
exposure
brilliant.
around the world. So more than the men's, I think women's. I think we see more continents and more teams getting involved. I mean, getting selected in these women's qualifiers. So that's really good news for the game of cricket. Yeah. But talking about Thailand, it's a very inspiring story of Thailand, and especially the spirit. And I think after their celebrations also, when I see them celebrate and the way they always greet other players also, other teams, and all. I mean, mainly the spirit and obviously their commitment and their fielding. First of all, their fielding, one
Their
of the
fielding,
best teams in the
brilliant,
world
brilliant,
when
absolutely.
it comes to their fieldings. Yeah. So thoughts on that? Yeah, about
I
their
mean,
commitment. I
yeah, I
mean,
mean, you so yeah, the commitment is absolutely brilliant. Right from day one, even if they lost, they were so humble, very complaints. They learn from every game. I think that's what the one thing they've done. Every game, if it's a win or loss, they've learned from every game. I saw in the interviews, they talked about it doesn't matter if we win or lose, we learn, and that's what
yeah.
they've implemented. They've gone back home after the World Cup. They've really, I think it was yeah, they've really implemented everything they've learned in that World Cup, and they've brought that along to this year, and that's something that's really helped them in this qualifiers even. And
Yeah.
very, 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 very
Especially,
sad that
yeah.
they can't even play even for the 2023 World Cup. But yeah,
Mm. Yeah, especially bowling out Pakistan women's for 145. And I mean, I'm really surprised. I really don't get this ICC rankings, first of all, with teams like Thailand performing so well, and they can't play for even for the Women's World Cup next year, if I'm not mistaken, because they can't play for the Women's ODI Championship since they're not in the top 10 and they don't have even a ODI status. I think they deserve ODI status with how they performed against top teams. So very unfortunate, and they don't get any exposure, even they don't get any tours because of their ranking right now. So yeah, so they have to keep. I mean, they have to keep on performing well in qualifiers. I think that's the only step. I mean, 4 years later also they need to play the same way to get ODI status. I think they can get it if they
They
do
can.
play well next in 4 years time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after this they're definitely gonna go back home. They're gonna. I think they're gonna come back stronger than ever. I can see this side going a very long way.
Hmm. And the way they
And
bowled
I
for
hope.
Pakistan women's for 145. I don't know these players. I
And
did watch the match a bit. Yeah, I think this one. I think Sonarin Tipoch. I think she's a big player for Thailand. I watched her interview also. She's a big player for Thailand women's, along with the captain, obviously. Yeah, but these two, I think, are the main role models. I think right now for the Thailand women's. Narimal Chaiwai, obviously, the captain of this Thailand team. Yeah, they've come a long way. They've come a long way, especially in the 2020 World Cup. I think their fielding especially stood out for me. And I think even every delivery, they have some passion. Compared to other teams, I see that passion and spirit from the Thailand team that I haven't seen from other teams. And especially that's where Sri Lankan women's team lack a bit.
especially in the
A lot.
field, you hear the stomachs and stuff. It's very loud. Every ball they're cheering on. You see the Sri Lankan side. It's very quiet. It's not very. I feel like passion isn't very much there, and you can understand why passion isn't there when your management's not backing you up, when your country's not backing you up. It's very difficult to go into games and be positive there. Mm.
Yeah. Let's now speak about Sri Lankan's only game they played. They played against the Netherlands. Obviously, they won by Duckworth Lewis. I thought they lose at one point against Netherlands because it was only Chamari Atapattu who contributed with the runs once again.
And a
Yeah,
brilliant
but
100 from here, really. After
unfortunately,
that,
she got out after
um,
getting the 100. I thought she could have get going against a Netherlands team.
I mean, to
Unfortunately, she
and
got
also
out.
to be going at that strike rate when she knows, I think she knows going like when she knows no one can back her up. Going at that strike rate was pretty impressive. 111 of
Mm.
70 balls, especially when
Yeah,
there's no one, literally no one there to back her up there. So that was very
and get
brave
yeah.
and
And sorry to interrupt, I think they got 167 for 3 after 23 overs, and after that they end up getting 278 for
right.
9 after 50 overs. So that's where
I think it's still a brilliant score, really, brilliant score, really.
yeah, still brilliant score for me. But yeah, I think middle order did okay. I mean, compared to other games, I think Sanjeevani and Oshadi Ranasinghe, she's a brilliant all rounder. She
Oshiji
can
has
bowl
been, yeah,
really
she's
well.
been there
Yeah,
for a very long time now.
very long time. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, even Virat Kohli, I think Virat Kohli could have done a better job. I've seen her batting also before. She could have done a better job in this match. Yeah, but yeah, it's mainly Chamari Atapattu that we can speak about. Yeah, unfortunately, she got out. 111, but the strike rate, 158 strike rate in ODI, that's tremendous from her.
It's tremendous,
Just
especially when you have no one else to back up. That's absolutely phenomenal. That courage to go out there and, I think she reads the ball very well. She's one of the players that can read the ball very well. And that's what makes her one of if not the best women's cricket, in my opinion. Yeah.
yeah. And talk about Netherlands women's also bowling. I think Caroline Villang got 4 wickets. Yeah, she's the only, but she was also economical. So many, I mean, the Netherlands bowlers were very expensive, but they got
Expensive.
the
They were
wickets,
very.
crucial wickets. Yeah, but Netherlands batting, coming to that, they got very close to the target. I mean, they needed 231 from 43.4. Unfortunately, due to rain, I think the match was a bit affected, but still they came very close to the target. And especially associate team like Netherlands. I mean, if Sri Lanka, I know Sri Lanka women's team won this match, but right now I think they need to play towards. I mean, even if it's against associate teams, it doesn't matter as long as they play tours right now.
This
So your thoughts on
Netherlands
that?
team, before coming into this, they've had a lot of tours. They've had like matches against European teams. They've had the exposure. Even teams like Germany, Netherlands, they're getting into hand. They're playing European League there. So I think they've
Yeah,
had more experience than us, I would say, in the past year or so. So going into this, Netherlands were very, very, very prepared. I would say. I don't think we were prepared at all going into this. The training began, I think, even a couple months back, not even a couple months back. So, this Netherlands side, they've had a lot of experience and yeah, it
yeah,
really is about games here. There's nothing else you can say, really.
yeah. Obviously, Oshri Ranasinghe getting 2 wickets of 10 overs. So yeah, 2 for 36. and yeah, others contributing with the ball. Yeah. So yeah, even Chamari Atapattu getting a wicket, she also can bowl a bit. Yeah. So yeah, obviously Chamari Atapattu is only the highlight. I mean, she's the only one who's been playing so much cricket right now. So much exposure. Obviously, she's played 84 ODI matches, 85 women's 2020 matches. So that shows how much. And her average is also really good.
Yeah.
500s already in her career, and she's 31 years. So most inspiring. I think before it was Shashika Sirivardhana, but I thought we will never see a play like Chamari Athapattu, and her highlight. I mean, before it was Shashika, now it's Chamari. We need more players to step up. And where is the future for Sri Lanka cricket after Chamari Athapattu retires?
It's a
Seriously.
very big issue, very, very, very big concern. She's old. She's getting to that point where she's gonna think of retiring here. I mean, after a few, I think after maybe the 2023 one, I see her retiring. I mean, it's very hard. I feel very sorry for Charmaine in a way because it's very hard to play in a team where, first of all, no one backs you up. Also, where a country doesn't back you up. Also, when the management doesn't back you up, it's very difficult to play in a team like that. I mean, you're batting in that batting order where, you're basically doing it by yourself. It's very
Hmm.
difficult. So it's very tough on her too. I mean, I, I
And see, even in the
yeah,
Women's Big Bash League, she scored 70, coming at number 4. She usually opens even. Unfortunately, obviously, so Sophie Devine, and she's a tremendous cricketer. Appreciate her a lot.
brilliant, brilliant.
New Zealand, she's 3 times Women's Big Bash League MVP. So along that, and Mooney, Perth Scottish women's team is very settled. I mean, and for Shamari Athapattu to enter this side and play at number 4 and score a 70, that shows her caliber. Actually, that shows her caliber in the international arena. Also, if she performs, I think that literally shows her intelligence and her approach to women's cricket. And that's where I think other women's cricketers also should take an example from Chamari Athapattu and try to perform. At least one or two players, if we can see from the Sri Lankan women's cricket team in the next 5 years, then we probably have a good future. Otherwise, once Chamri retires, I'm a bit really, really concerned right now.
Very concerning, very concerning.
Yeah, about this team right now, because we don't have a star like Chamri Athapattu that could cause a
I
bit
mean,
of
to
a trouble.
replace Chalmers, it's she's almost irreplaceable, really. But I mean, if we can get these players, these young players, we've got a lot of youngsters in the 19, 20 years old age. We can
Yeah.
get them if we really implement a good routine, a good training program. I think this can go somewhere. I really think this can go somewhere. The talent is really there. It is.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we literally discussed everything. Obviously, we
yeah.
spoke about
Women's cricket.
all about Sri Lanka women's cricket, and yeah, about Thailand as well, and obviously Bangladesh, Pakistan, and West Indies going from the rankings. Yeah, Pakistan number 7, West Indies number 8. So that's how I think ICC took from the top 8 rankings to go to the 2022 Women's World Cup in New Zealand. If they continue the qualifiers, I don't think even Bangladesh, one of the teams, Bangladesh or Pakistan, would have not even qualified. We don't know how it
Yeah.
would have happened, the Super Six, how that would have enrolled, but still, those teams, one of those teams would have likely to miss it if Sri Lanka also played really well. So yeah, very unfortunate that the women's World Cup qualifiers got abandoned in Zimbabwe due to the new variant being detected. Yeah, so what's to be done? But thank you so much, Dipansa, for coming today. We discussed a lot about Sri Lanka women's cricket, and
Yeah, and I think
hopefully,
there's a lot. Hopefully, we get more videos on women's cricket. I feel like we
yeah,
should. Yeah, we'll cover more women's games
yeah,
because
yeah, we'll
it's equally
definitely
as
do.
important to men's cricket here. Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe we can do a women's Big Bash League wrap up, maybe review. I didn't watch much of the Big Bash, so I can't actually
right.
do a video on that. But yeah, maybe for the Women's World Cup coming up next year
Yeah,
in March and April, we can do videos on that coming up, and maybe more tours
maybe if
covering
there's like
women's
tours,
cricket. Yeah,
like because India, England, they play a lot of very
yeah,
frequent tours. England, we can do that because especially we know most of them. Those players are very exposed, so it's
yeah.
going to be
We
much
know
easier to talk
the
about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
obviously, I think I covered on the 100 women's also before on the
Mm.
TSB actually. So it's not the first time that I'm speaking
Oh
about
yeah,
women's cricket. I covered the 100, yeah, on women's cricket. I always did. So that's what I'm saying. Like the 100, I think other countries also could go parallel. That's the thing. Like 100, we saw men's and women's playing together. It was so easy. And we saw so much talent also coming from that 100, especially for women's cricket. so much names that I found out, so many new names. That's why I
Right.
covered it on TSB. I was interested on it. Maybe that's why T10 leagues also going on in Abu Dhabi and all. Maybe women's cricket could get involved with T10 leagues happening in the future. Do you see that happening, especially T10? Yeah, like the 100 being
Um,
successful, the shorter
I mean,
formats.
I mean, bigger boards like the BCCI, Aussie Cricket and those things, they definitely can implement this. I mean, they've more than enough money, they've more than enough experience to do that. I mean, especially a women's team, especially Australia, I would say, they
Yeah.
could definitely implement like something like the 100, a new fun format. I mean, they've got grounds, all over the country, and I think that could be very big. Get players, get those. You saw in the 100 so many youngsters, 16-year-olds,
Yeah.
you saw new
Mm,
players, and
yeah.
that's where the exposure comes in, and that's where the recognition comes in. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Countries like UAE, perhaps I think Sri Lanka were trying to plan for a T10 for men's. I don't know whether that's going to happen or whatever this year. I don't think they just stop. They just say that it's
Just
going to
stop
happen, but it
really.
never happens. It never happens here. Yeah, but let's see. Let's see. They say that a T10 league will happen. We'll see whether it will happen. Like the LPL, that's why LPL. I think if for 5 years, if it's successful, maybe we can start a women's LPL. That's what I'm saying. Right now, we can't start because the
Obviously not,
men's
obviously.
tournament is not even established. That's the thing, and new
Yeah.
owners being changed, teams getting changed. That's what I say. We can't start a women's LPL unless the men's LPL first of all needs to be stable, and the owners need to be stick with the same team, not changing the whole time, and the players getting changed in drafts
Yeah, I mean,
after
even Sri
drafts.
Lankan
Players
men's team
getting
is not in a
changed.
good state. So how can we like, you know, get the women's team? I mean, it's obviously improving. I mean, see, men's team is obviously improved in the last couple of months, but
Yeah,
first we need to yeah, once we establish that. But I don't think we can just wait. I think what we've
but
done
we
in the
need to give
past is just
equal focus on men's and
exactly
women's,
what I'm
and
saying.
maybe
Like we can't just be like we have to wait till they establish this because that might take forever. So we need to, as soon as we get that focus on the women's team, that's
yeah.
where change starts really.
But first, we need tours. If without tours, I think the
Games,
women's team
games.
without tours, we can't see how they perform. They need exposure to overseas conditions. England, Australia, India. I think Sri Lanka women's did play a Australian women's ODI tour and 2020 tour in 2018. We need more exposure, especially with England, New Zealand, India. We need more tours, especially overseas. I think at home, Sri Lanka women's may be able to do well, but mainly overseas. Overseas is where Sri Lanka women's get tested against South Africa women's, West Indies women's. We need more tours, and the SLC have to invest. I don't know what Shammi Silva, the president, is doing, the secretary is doing, the vice
Just
president
all
is
bunch
doing.
of
I have no
politics
idea.
really. Someone
It's
who
all
has no
about
knowledge of
politics.
cricket.
Nothing is going on.
It's all politics really. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so we'll end things.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
pretty much
please
it.
today at 3 p.m. we'll be doing a premiere of the IPL retentions. I won't be going live, but it's a recorded video. So, but join the live chat for that. 3 p.m. IST will be doing the IPL possible retentions from the 8 teams and then two new picks from Lucknow and Ahmedabad. So we'll be doing on that 3 p.m. today IST. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dimansa, for coming today. We covered a lot. And please do subscribe to the Sports Breakdown, and please click the notification bell on as well for more women's cricket coming up. If there's any more tours going on, unfortunately, I couldn't watch the Big Bash. That's why women's Big Bash, because so many cricket going on with the 2020
So,
World Cup. Yeah, that's why I couldn't watch that much of the women's Big Bash. If I can, I'll try to do a video on that with you, hopefully. If I watch a bit of the highlights, but it's very, very difficult with the
very
men's
difficult.
tours going on. Yeah, it's really difficult to focus on women's cricket, and especially LPL starting next week. Then the Ashes coming up, Abu Dhabi T10 going on. So
The
much
LPL
cricket
will be
going.
covered,
Yeah,
right? The LPL will be covered. Yeah,
yeah, LPL will be covered. Yeah, from next week. Yeah,
every
next
game.
Sunday
Yeah.
starting in 1 week. Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, obviously the first match I think it's between Gaul and Jaffna at 7:30. Gaul Gladiators and Jaffna Kings. Yeah. So that will be the first match. So the first, I think the group stage matches are in R. Premadasa Stadium, and this time for the first time in the LPL we have a qualifiers. So like the IPL, we have the qualifier one, qualifier two, and the eliminator with 5 teams. I don't know how they're going to do it with 5 teams. So that's going to be interesting. Normally, usually there should be 6 teams. Yeah, but like the IPL and PSL, they've come up with that setup. And those matches will be happening in Hambantota. So the playoffs and the finals will happen in Hambantota, and the group stage matches will happen in Colombo. Yeah, so that's how
Right.
it will go. Yeah, so it will start next Sunday. Yeah, so we'll wrap things up here. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see you in the next video, and see you at 3 p.m. on the live set of the IPL video. Yeah, on the IPL possible retention video. Yeah, so until then, see you guys.